What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. So, you may be wondering why I've got a whole pile of HTs lined up here on my desk. So, as you can see, I've got quite a few handheld radios. This is not all of them, but there's a reason I've got all these HTs on my desk today. So today we're going to be taking a look at a radio that was sent to me by Retevis, and it's a brand new radio coming out. It's based on the Ailunce HA1UV GMRS radio, but it is a 2 meter 70 centimeter ham radio, and it's being marketed sort of as a radio for beginners, right? Easy to use, good for a brand new radio operator. So the reason I have all these different radios on my desk is just to show you that, and this is not all of my radios, this is just some, but to show you that I have a lot of experience programming radios, right? I've front panel programmed every radio on this desk, including the DMR stuff. If you've ever put DMR like code plugs in by hand from the front panel, you know how fun that is. But needless to say, I've got a lot of experience programming radio, so I'm not exactly what we would call a new radio operator. So we're going to take a look at that radio today, and we're going to see just how easy it really is to use. We'll go over some of the different features, some of the different specs, what I think about it, how easy it actually is to program. Now, I've barely played with the radio. I've had it for a little while, but I've only taken it out of the box and turned it on and familiarized myself with the menu structure. I really haven't done much else with the radio, and that's on purpose. I wanted to take it out of the box right in front of you and try to program it from scratch to see just how easy is it really to use for a brand new radio operator. So we'll look at, the ease of programming. We'll look at some of the different features. We'll talk about who maybe I think it's for and who it's not for. And then we'll wrap things up with my final thoughts. So with that being said, let me get my desk cleared off here, get rid of these radios, get rid of my computer so we got some space to work. And I'll be back in just a minute with the radio. Okay, so we're back. So here's the box. I don't normally do what one would consider unboxing videos on this channel. That's not what I do. But I did leave everything in the box so you can kind of see what comes with the radio. All right. So let me kind of get situated here a little bit. We'll open this up. So inside is sort of your standard fare. You've got your manual. Again, we're looking at the Ailunce HA1UV. So this is the 2 meter and 70 centimeter version of basically the HA1UV GMRS radio, which has been out for quite a while. It's a decent manual. I've seen better and I've seen worse. If you've used any of these Chinese radios before, you're familiar with what these manuals are like. You get a programming cable. This particular programming cable, this is sort of the waterproof pogo pin style one because this radio is waterproof. We'll talk about that in a minute. So you can't use sort of a standard Kenwood jack programming cable. So you do need the correct programming cable for the radio. You have the radio itself, which we'll talk about in a minute. We have a charging cradle. We have a USB cable, which is a Type A to Type C. So we're going to find out in a minute if this thing charges PD or not. And we have a lanyard. Now, it did also come with the belt clip in the box. I put it on the radio already. All right, but that's what you get. Again, I don't know if this is the actual retail packaging for this radio or not. This is, like I said, a brand new radio as far as this is concerned. So I don't know exactly what you'll get in the box. All right. So there are some things about this radio that I do want to talk about. There were some features that they wanted me to talk about. I'm okay with talking about features on a radio if a manufacturer asks me to. I won't have them tell me what to say, but if there are specific true things about the radio they want me to point out, I'm fine with that. So Retevis says that this is easy to program and use. Now we're going to find out in a minute how easy it is to program. All right. It's got sub push to talk. A lot of radios have that, but it's basically where you can program these side buttons to work on a sub band, so you don't have to change bands in order to talk. It's Type C charging. Now, let's find out right now how Type C it actually is. So if you look on the back of the radio, you will see there is a Type C jack right there. I have a Type C power delivery cable in my hand here. So if I plug this in and that light comes on, that tells me it's USB PD. If the light doesn't come on, this isn't Type C PD, which isn't a huge deal. Just understand you have to have a Type A to Type C standard charger. And I don't see a light. Okay, so that tells me this is probably not PD. So let me get a non-PD cable. So here is a standard This is a USB-A to USB-C. And the light came on. So as you can see, and this is common of a lot of radios. I mean, even like Icom's radios, like an ID50, they're not PD. So it's not a deal breaker or anything. Just be aware of that. Okay, so it is Type-C jack, but it's not PD. It does come with a desktop charger, obviously, so you can charge it in the cradle also. The battery's 2,800 milliamp hours, which should last a good long time. This is a pretty big battery. All right, so it is IP67. So this guy is waterproof and dustproof, which is a big plus. It is PC programmable. Obviously, there is a programming cable. The software, I don't think is available yet. I couldn't find it, but I'm sure it will work very similar to any of the other sort of programming software that you're used to for any of these kinds of radios. So let's kind of go through this radio and look at what it's about. So you can see we've got the antenna, oddly enough, is on the opposite side of this radio. This is a very, very similar form factor like a lot of the Motorola radios. All right, it's got the antenna on the right-hand side as opposed to the left. We've got our on-off knob and our volume knob. And we have our channel knob on top. Now, I'm a fan of having channel knobs. All right. On the front, you can see we've got our standard sort of keypad. Our menu buttons are up and down arrows. On the side, here's where our programming cable would attach. Over here, we've got our push to talk and our two sub buttons. We do have a third top button you can program to do other things as well. So right off the bat, one of the things I really do like about this radio is it does have a separate channel knob, which I'm a big fan of. I like the ability to not have to use the keypad to change channels or frequencies. So you can see right now, I've got it programmed just with the 2 meter and 70 centimeter calling frequencies. I just wanted to punch those in and make sure everything worked before I shot this video. So I transmitted on both of those just to make sure the radio worked, and it worked fine, no problem at all. So let's take a look at our menu structure. So we'll go ahead and hit the menu button. So you can see we've got a radio menu, and if we go, you can't see that because there's a glare. If we go into that radio menu, you can see we can change our display mode. All right, so if we go in there, we can change frequency, name, or channel. Band setting is exactly what it sounds like. Our backlight, right? We can change our brightness and our timeout. Key functions. This is where you would program all your keys, your lock keys, your side function keys, all those kinds of things. We can change our audio. So this is where we change like our mic gain and things like that. All right. Our Vox, enable, disable, power save mode, menu timeout setting. We can change the language in here. We can save channels in here. Our radio information, which will show us our firmware and whatnot. All right. And we're back to top. Zones are exactly what they sound like. So you can program this radio with multiple zones and you can switch between the zones. All right. Here's our channel. So we can program channels in. So you can see we've got VFO, VFOB, and we currently have 4 channels available to us. We can add channels as well. All right. Scan is exactly what it sounds like. Signaling, this is where you'd put in like DTMF tones and things like that. Emergency, so this would be like your emergency frequency list. Call tone, exactly what it sounds like. FM radio. All right, we can turn that on and off, and you can do it from here. You can also do it from the side button. So if I come up here, I think, let's see, the top one I think is squelch, if I remember correctly. Oh, that long press changes the power. Hold on. Short press opens the squelch. On the top one, the bottom one, short press.
We're off again in the second round.
Turns on the FM radio. All right. So we do have NOAA weather radio built in as well. All right. So we can set weather alarms, or we can go into our NOAA weather channels, which is a nice feature to have. You could obviously program those in yourself, but they're already in the radio. We can do a factory reset. All right, so those are that's our basic menu structure. Pretty straightforward. So let's see what this radio is like to program a frequency. So let's go ahead and change. Well, first things first, let me show you how to change. So if you want to change VFOs, you're going to push short press the little asterisk button here. So that'll change between a VFO and VFOA and VFOB. If I long press exit, it switches between channel and VFO mode. All right. So if I go into menu and channel, let's go down to channel 1. All right. So we can call this whatever we want to call it. I'm going to program this with one of my local repeaters here. So I'm going to program this with this HA1UV Binghamton repeater right here. So we'll see how this goes. So we're going to go ahead and go channel alias. And I can, if I remember correctly, it's kind of a pain to, let's see if I can remember how to do this. I went in and played with this a little bit before, but let's see. I don't remember how to delete these. There we go. So this is going to be W. That's the other problem, is on the keys it doesn't show you the letters, so you kind of have to guess. Whoops, I missed W. W. A. 2. Let's see, Q is probably going to be about here. Q. E. Oh, that's going to be this one. HA1UV. All right, so we've got our name for our channel programmed in. So yes. Bandwidth is going to be wide, yes. Receive frequency. So let me go back to my other phone here. So our receive frequency is going to be 146.865, which I have programmed in there already, as you can see. I made sure all this worked earlier. Like I said, I haven't really done much with this radio. I just wanted to make sure everything worked before I shot this video. Our TX frequency. So obviously this is going to be, this is minus 0.6. So this is going to be 265, right? So we're going to go, whoops. Okay, 146.265. Save it. So let's just make sure our receive frequency is correct. It is. Transmit frequency is correct. It is. Let's put our CTCS tone in. So I'm not going to do any tone for the receive. And you just push the up button and it switches for transmit. Let's see. Our tone on this repeater is 146.2. So we're going to use the channel knob, if I remember correctly. Yep. We're going to turn that till it says 146.2. Okay. Looks good. All right. We can set our squelch level for individual channels. Our transmit power, where that should be at high, it is. Permissions, right? So if you want to be able to transmit or not, signaling system. If we want to add it to a scan list and an emergence list, we can do that. If you want to do talk around where you're listening in on the other frequency, you can do that as well. If we want to enable Vox for a specific channel, we can. I'm not going to do any of that stuff. So I'm going to come out of here and we're going to switch the VFO here to, all right. So we're now on the 146.865 repeater. If I want to show the name for that channel, let me see if I can remember how to go into radio. Let's see, I don't remember where that is. It's in, I know it's in here someplace. There it is. So we got on, I'm gonna display name. All right, so now it's showing me it's the HA1UV repeater. All right. So let's make sure this works. So I'm going to turn on the 705 over here, which I believe is already on that repeater. It is 146.865 HA1UV. So we're going to go ahead and give this a shot. We're going to key this thing up and see how it works. K2EJT, radio test, radio test. All right, and that worked. K2EJT clear. Okay, so that worked no problem. So that wasn't horrible to program. Now, I will tell you, this is definitely not as easy to program as, let's say, a Baofeng or something like that. They're very, very simple to program. The difference is, though, this radio has a lot more features. It does a lot more. Like a UB5R or something like that's a very basic radio. This is a lot more full-featured radio. You know, all in all, I think this is a pretty nice package. It feels good in your hand. It feels pretty stout. I like the layout. I like the fact that it has the channel knob. I like that it's IP67. I like that it's USB-C charging, although I do wish it was PD. So let's talk about a couple things that I don't like. And this is not a gripe with this particular radio, but just radios in general. I don't like color screens on radios I'm going to use outside. They look great indoors in the sun. They're very hard to read. All right. I don't like the fact that it isn't PD. I wish this was a PD charger. All right. Aside from that, I mean, I really don't have any complaints about the radio. Like I said, I like the form factor. I like how it feels in your hand. It seems to work well. It's not that difficult to program, although, like I said, it's not as easy as a real simple radio. But again, this radio has a lot more features than just one of your basic $20, $15 Baofangs does, right? This will do a lot more things. It's got a lot more features. You know, it's got a lot of other stuff built in. So, right, there's our.
New York.
Let's see what our volume is. So I got this thing barely turned up. I'm gonna crank this volume.
It was mostly sunny with a temperature of 24. It was partly sunny.
Oh, this thing will blow your eardrums out. Okay, that's another plus. It is loud. All right. Some radios, so like for instance this Yaesu, which I love, this FT5, the speaker on this thing's not super loud. This thing, woo, is that loud. So you don't have to worry about being able to hear this thing outside. So all in all, I'm fairly impressed with the radio. I'm not sure what the retail price is going to be on these yet, but yeah, I kind of like this radio. Like I said, I like the form factor. I like some of the features. If you've ever used an HA1G, it's a very similar form factor. I do have a couple of those coming as well we'll talk about. Again, I tend to use my GMRS radios more than I use my ham radios. But all in all, I got to say, it's a pretty nice little radio. I kind of like it. So who's it for? I mean, this could be for anybody who wants a halfway decent radio that's, you know, IP67, has a decent feature set but isn't super complicated. It has USB-C charging, all those kinds of things you might want built in, and doesn't have a bunch of really complicated stuff to deal with, right? Like you use some of the really high-end radios, you know, like a Kenwood TH75 or a ICOM ID52 or this FT5DR, right? They're a lot more complicated to use. That repeater just went. So let's do this. Somebody just started talking on the repeater, so let's see if he talks. So, like I said, this is a good radio for someone who wants a radio that does all the radio stuff they need it to do without all the ridiculous bells and whistles of some of the really expensive radios. This would be a good radio as a knock-around radio, you know, out in the woods. It's like I said, it's robust. It feels good and tough. It's IP67. And again, it's got some features that I really like. It's got the channel knob on top. It is IP67. It is USB-C. All right, so it does have a lot of good features. So all in all, I think they did a pretty good job with this radio. I'll be curious when I get the HA1Gs, the GMRS version, to see how they compare. I'm sure it's pretty much the identical radio, just locked to the GMRS channels. The only other thing that I would say about this radio is while it feels fantastic in the hand, it is a little big. All right, so that's something to consider. If you're somebody who likes really small radios, this is not a really small radio. But the nice thing about a radio this size, and another thing is even the belt clip, the pocket clip, is contoured. So this radio feels really nice in your hand. Some radios don't feel so great in your hand. This one actually does. This one fits your hand really well. It feels really good in your hand. But like I said, it is a little bit big. So at any rate, I really do appreciate having the opportunity to take a look at this radio. I believe these are going to be available starting, I think they said February 14th. Yeah, all in all, it's a pretty nice little radio. You'll probably see this radio out with me some in the field as I test it and see how it works. I'll put it in rotation with my other radios and see what I think. But initial impressions are pretty good. So at any rate, everybody, that's our first look at the Ailunce HA1UV dual band 2 70 centimeter ham radio. If you got any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. I can only tell you just based on what little experience I have with the radio and what's in the manual. There's not a lot of information out there about this radio otherwise. But hopefully you found the video informative. If you're considering buying one of these, think about some of the strengths and the drawbacks I talked about in the video and, decide if this radio is for you. So at any rate, Thank you, everybody, for watching. I really do appreciate it. And as always, until next time, 7-3.